We should probably talk about Tina. Yes.
Tina Connolly is amazing in about three different ways. She is a fiercely gifted podcaster. She's actually the host of Escape Pod, along with me, and occasional guest appearances from Divya. And she has this incredible ability to analyze and dive down into the thematic meat of a story in a manner which is accessible and is at no point makes you feel like you're watching an autopsy. She's also got a fantastic show herself, Toasted Cake, and is just ridiculously talented author in her own right, running the gamut from science fiction and steampunk all the way through to horror and fantasy and everything in between.
And she has a YA series as well through Tortine.
She has a YA series as well through Tortine.
Yes.
And there is a story in here called Super Moms, which I am going to put a link to in the show notes because we did it at EA as a cross-cast thing.
A full cast, and it's like...
And oh my god, they all had so much
fun.
It
was so much fun. There's like 7 different people reading. It's read the full title of the story from the table of contents.
Book looks like this.
It's a great collection.
Super Baby Moms Group saves the day.
Right. So it's a support group for the moms of super babies. Mm-hmm. And it's their email thread. It's hilarious.
It's basically someone's WhatsApp group. It's very cool.
It's really, really fun. It's a fun story.
We are going to present to you 2 stories from this tonight. Pardon me. The first is the titular. I want to enter into the record. I did not laugh. She did.
Yes.
On the eyeball floor. So without further ado...
Hold on just 1 second.
Oh, of course. Headline content warnings for death and dying, horror themes, mental health, miscellaneous sexual themes, violence. We also have a detailed list of all tonight's content warnings at an address which is in the chat as we speak. Yep. Times are hard, folks. Guard your squee.
Yeah.
If anything in this sounds like it's going to be something which you are not cool with, step out. We will not take it personally, I swear.
And go ahead and make sure you check the document if you need a more detailed content warning and you're less concerned about spoilers.
Yeah. And if you're concerned, it's 4,000 words. This will take about half an hour. Trust me, we'll be about half done by then.
All right. Make yourselves comfy. Get a stretch, get a snack, get a drink if you need to, and let's get started.
On the Eyeball Floor by Tina Connolly. We've got robotic... pardon me. We've got robotic arms to put the eyeballs in, metal clamps to pull down the eyelids. Tony, on 4, keeps the grease vats filled. Oil squirts 19 times a minute to keep the eye sockets from squeaking. Tiny slick needles stitch on the lashes. Millions of different irises get stamped in magenta and yellow and cyan, so no 2 will ever be alike. Just like us. All that, and they can't engineer anything or anyone to take over my job. People in organs go home coated with grease and vinegar. People in bones have lost fingers to the machines. Still, nobody wants the job where 100 half-live cyborgs line up in rows, twitching when your back's turned, waiting for someone to talk to them, feel for them, transcend them to life. There are safety signs around the factory. Scrub up, know thyself, don't blink. That last is the best piece of advice here on the eyeball floor. Sometimes you blink and the world changes. Sometimes you just go blind. Clementine's a crash type made to comfort human babies, hold them in maternity wards or when the human parents are working. Parallel to my job, actually, a cyborg coaxing humans into awareness. Usually, crash types transcend the fastest. They're stuffed with warmth signals and motherly hormones. They respond to my need for them to transcend, and then they just oblige. She wouldn't. One evening, after I'd escorted all the newly transcendent cyborgs down to shipping, I came back to my room on the eyeball floor. The room always feels chilly after the most lively ones have left. The remaining cyborgs fall in that uncanny gap, neither dead nor alive. Little parts of him were waking up. There, one side of his mouth crinkled into a little human smile. That girl swallowed. That man scratched himself when my back was turned. I felt it. That's why nobody wants my job. This asteroid miner down on the end, his neck and mouth were alive with intent, but nothing else was. The heartbeat pulsed in his neck, speeding up as I inspected him. I stared at his jaw and he chewed on his lower lip. I bet myself a packet of tea he'd be resentful imprint, hating me, his parent. But though his mouth was awake, his eyes were dead. I went over to the young woman. Clementine, I named her. Her real name was Agrippina Adamantina Kresh. It was inscribed on the back of her neck. Julie on one comes up with all the names and tattoos them on just below the serial number. She ran out of good names like Clementine ages ago. Clementine's a good name for a Kresh cyborg because they all have wide, sturdy feet. I walked Clementine to a corner and I talked to her alone. Talked about rabbits, about the price of tea in China, about Sue, my girl in feet who had curly brown hair that tumbled across her nose, who liked powdered milk in her tea. Who likes powdered milk? I watched the printed blue irises, the back-grown ears, the swing of silky blonde hair. None of it registered. I hate failures, I told her. Not you. I hate when I fail. So you better hurry up and transcend. I don't want your brain to be stripped and started over. If you've got anything going on upstairs, it'll wink out of existence, love. Behind me, that minor cyborg stepped all the way out of line. You don't want that either, huh? I said. What's your name? He looked down at me. Hatred. Don't know. I walked around him and looked at the back of his neck. Oh, Maurizio Young, minor, mouthful. Call yourself Maury. If I want. Recalcitrant cyborg. Look, I just made the shipping run. See that crash model with the blonde hair? Why don't you see if you could talk her into existence before morning? The girl's painted blue eyes stared through us. She's hiding in there. But when morning came, Maury was carving a swear word into my desk, and Clementine was as still as the grave. If there was life, I was blind to it. I should have given Clementine up to recycling. I didn't. She became a pet project, and on my breaks I walked her around the factory. Showed her where her hands had been attached and how her blonde hair had been woven to her scalp. I took her to see Sue, and we stood and watched her hair tumble as she cleaned a pile of feet. Darling Clementine, this is Slewfoot Sue, I said. Sue laughed. You're so funny. When did you get these crazy names? She flicked a bit of skin away with the sander. Slewfoot Sue was Pecos Bill's girl, I said. She wore a bustle and it bounced her over the moon. She laughed again. I never did see the likes of you, she said. Must be why you can work with the cyborgs when they get all creepy. Just an act. Well, Clementine and I are going to go down to 4 and see the grease. Maybe I'll see you later. Make you tea with a spoonful of milk. Just how you like it. Slewfoot looked down at the foot she held, her curls obscuring her face. Tell Tony I says hello, she said. I turned Clementine to the stairs and her arms shuddered beneath me. Sudden. Something very warm and human. Her face was dead, but you don't work on the eyeball floor long without learning to trust intuition. That's a darling, I said. That's what I want to see. We emerged on 4, where Tony was tinkering with a fitting. Tony keeps the wheels greased, I said. He tops off the grease vats, and he makes sure the gears on 4 run smoothly. All right, said Tony. What you doing with the cyborg? She won't transcend, I said. It's been 3 weeks. Yeah, her neck joint's all right. He wiped his hands on his pants and moved aside her silky blonde hair to rotate her neck. Sometimes the wires and organics get a little pinched. Tony used to work in necks, I told her. Can you tell Tony that Slewfoot Sue said aye? She was a nice girl, wasn't she? Don't talk to them in front of me, Tony said. Creeps me out. You're touching her and she's not creepy. It's not her yet, said Tony, lifeless as a wrench. He let her hair fall back. By the way, Randy's going to be gone Monday. Somebody has to fill in on 7. I groaned. Contest. Unless you want to seed now. Pardon me? I groaned. Contest? Unless you want to seed now. Not a chance. Come on, Clementine. I nodded at Tony. Tomorrow morning? Yeah. He stared at Clementine's lifeless face. You really took her to see Sue? Sure thing, I said. After all, she's my girl. At 10 on Friday, I met Tony for the contest. When you've been here as long as us, you know all the jobs by heart, even the ones you'd rather fight over than do. Lots of people want to fill in for management, but they make me or Tony do it because we won't get any ideas. We don't want ideas. Tony likes grease. I'm needed where I am. There were lots of people in the exercise room to watch, everyone on break, standing with their thermoses of coffee or squeezes of soup. Sue stirred powdered milk into her tea, brown eyes lively with excitement. Tony and I contest by burling. There's a long metal cylinder in the middle of the exercise room, rigged up 3 feet off the ground on a spindle. We each stand at an end and walk or run forwards or backwards, trying to drop the other one off as the cylinder spins. Mimics the old days when the factory was a real wild place. Corrupt management, no safety regs. Guys used to balance on the rolling metal chute over the powered down recycler late at night, betting on who'd faceplant in the vat. 2 out of 3, said Tony. 1 out of 1, I said. We kept our balance with long pointed poles, steadied our feet on the roughened metal. 3, 2, go, said our ref, and we dropped the poles, walking forwards on the metal cylinder. Good Berlin's about clever balance and sharp focus. Watch your opponent's feet and do not blink. We weren't even in skill, but we fought anyway, because I couldn't let Tony win without a fight. Some people bet on me because they like the odds. Tony's feet trotted forward. Mine kept pace. I slowed us. He sped us up. Sue watched us holding her tea. A curl tumbled into her face. I missed the change in tempo as Tony reversed, spinning the metal cylinder backwards, feet pattering and whirling the metal. I took her header into the mat, and it was over. Everyone groaned. Tony jumped down, beamed at Sue, and she ran to him. You were a god, Tony. To me, with pity. Nice try. Tony squeezed her closer. Only then did I realise that this time the contest wasn't really about management. It was about Slewfoot Sue. And worse, I saw then that her art belonged to Tony. I worked in arts before I was promoted to the eyeball floor, so I thought I knew a lot about them, but obviously I didn't. Sue didn't care that I was the only one to watch how her curls tumbled. The one that knew and adored every gesture she made. I levered to my knees with the aid of the pointed pole. She wasn't my girl at all. I lunged at Tony. He sidestepped and the sharpened pole kept going, swept on hard, took a long red gash at the person coming up to give me the rundown on the Monday replacement shift. Randy. It was Randy. And he jumped backwards, clutching his arm, bawling. God damn it, Bill. You're out in your ass for that. You know the goddamn rules. Tony, you cover Bill's shift. My blood pumped high at the sudden collapse of everything. Don't blink, I said to Tony. Why not? Someone might take your girl. When I went back to my room on the eyeball floor, my hands were shaking. Clementine stood apart from the others by the window, sun glinting in her curly brown hair. I hadn't realised that she had hair like Slewfoot, and it made me slant away, crossing my arms. I told her of the contest. There was something about the way that Tony looked at me before we started. I should have known then. I said I should have known Slewfoot had changed her mind, that she was Tony's girl now. Sure, we shared a laugh or two in the elevator, but so what? Tony had a good job in Greece, and I was here. I should have known it meant nothing. That I knew every micro movement of hers, the way she ate, laughed, swung her hair. Clementine moved as I spoke, but that didn't mean life. Even machines grow restless. She sat at the window, face lifted to the sun. And now this is it. I said, I'm done. Kaput. I have to pack my bags. And you know the worst part? The sunlight picked a stripe of white across her snub nose and cheekbone. Sue don't even care. Clementine, the failure I would leave behind, rankled. I grabbed her chin and turned it towards me. The brown printed irises were stony. Cold with anger? I turned her cheek again. No. Just cold. She would be scrapped. Then, brown? I looked again. Her eyes were brown, the same colour as Slewfoot Sue's. Those eyes I knew like my own. I'm going crazy, I said. A dark statement as I backed away. Maybe if I turned now, the whole room of cyborgs would look like Sue to me, or just the girls, rows of brown curls, the boys all looking like Tony, Allking. red-cheeked. Don't blink on the eyeball floor, they say. That's the reason no one wants my job. No one wants to work the transcending, because they say out there in the factory that every time someone blinks, they lose a little bit of themselves, and when they do, a cyborg gains it. I turned, but the room was as it was, a room full of the halfway transcendent, rows of uncanny cyborgs that no one else could handle. Don't blink, said the sign. I tore it down. I cleared out all the cyborgs that were close. I accelerated them and marched them down to shipping. I stayed into the late shift while everyone left except the mechanics, who fidget with gaskets in the moonlight. The room got colder and colder. No one said anything to me. No one made me go home. This one, with the slew for air and the slew for eyes who wouldn't transcend, she stood stone cold all day long. The cyborgs blinked and laughed around her. Someone was mocking me with her. I marched up, I shoved her head to the side and rummaged through her scalp, looking at her roots. Now that I looked for her, I could see where her first hair was ineptly sheared away. It looked like someone cut off her straight blonde hair and stuck her head back in the growing vat to get it re-woven. But it was poorly done. It was uneven. Hair roots sprang from the top of her left ear. Her eyes, now brown, I'm sure they were blue. The signs were plain, great gouges around her eyelids where someone scraped the old blue out. What a waste just to drive me crazy. I'm already half crazy from the eyeball floor, and who did it? Tony? Yeah, this slewfoot doppelganger was my failure, and I would get rid of her before I went. Either she would be recycled, or the threat would shake her. Fear makes transcending happen in the big sleeps, though it was a disgusting tactic. I dragged Clementine to the basement, to recycling, pointed out the iron shears, the pipe wrenches, the acid. The recycler vat where I would dump her for someone else to deal with. In her case, it wouldn't just wipe her brain. It would detect her scarred face and remove her head, starting over. This is your last chance to tell me if you're in there, I said. Her arm shuddered in my hands. She had to be close, so close. I hung her over the rollers that led to the recycler vat, pushing her face towards them, hating it. Tony will do this to you if I don't. Tell me. Put her down. It was Tony, holding a massive pipe wrench. She won't transcend. You want to deal with her? Fucking hell, you're crazy. Put Sue down. I looked at the figure in my arms, but it was still lifeless Clementine in Slewfoot's hair and eyes. You did this, I said to Tony. What was your plan? Trying to make me lose it? Put down the girl. Tony, I said. You won. I pulled Clementine back from the vat, shoved her at him. She fell stiffly into his shoulder, his arms springing up to catch her. The pipe wrench clanked on the cement floor. Take your cyborg, do what you want. Tony stared at Clementine's printed eyes. I'm sorry, man, he said. The air, the body, I don't know what I thought. He stood Clementine upright. A brown curl tumbled across her face, just like Slewfoot Sue's did. Asshole, I said. Yeah, I'm sorry this whole thing got you fired. Look, I told Randy I provoked you. He's calmed down. I think he'll change his mind. Relief will hit me. Things will be fixed. You just don't want to work my job, I said. Bingo, said Tony. I like Grease. So what's up with this cyborg anyway? Just coincidence it looks like Sue. You mean you didn't do it? I said. You crazy? Just psycho. He peered closer. His eyes are all messed up. Not going to want defects like that in this shipment. Scrap it entirely now before it transcends. He pulled Clementine's arm towards the vat, and as he did, I saw something play across her face. Fear. There was fear in there, and she let me see it. Stop, Tony, I said. She's awake. Wouldn't you know it? He let go of her arm, retrieved his pipe wrench. Well, she'll have to be repaired. Clementine stood there, looking at me. That intuition that transcends reason said she'd been awake a long time. Say something, I said. Her voice was soft and resonant, slow in its tumble from her lips. Your hair, she said. When you turn your head, that curl falls over your brow and brushes your forehead. Tony shuddered. This is why no one wants your job, psycho lovelorn cyborgs. Oh, she'd been awake a long time, and I'd been blind to it. I moved closer. She breathed into me a soft metal scent. I touched a brown girl. You did this, I said. You sheared your hair and stuck your head in the machine. I touched the tip of her ear where the curls sprang out. You were a little off. I tried 3 times to get the programming right. She said, first it made me a redhead, then I got male pattern baldness. Then you ripped out your eyes. I touched the hollows under them. For me. I dropped one, she said. I crawled after it in the dark. I touched her jaw and she tilted her face with its snub nose. How could she have hidden so well? I closed my eyes, drawing her in. Then I was holding only air. You're in too weird with this, Tony said. He pushed Clementine back towards the rollers. Her brown eyes were pleading. It's defective, man. Psychosis. I'll take care of it for you. He shoved Clementine down, under his breath. Teach you to imitate my goal. It was technically the right course of action per the company handbook, but it wasn't right. From the closest hook, I grabbed iron shears, raised them like a club. You drop her, I will fucking kill you. He didn't budge. I'm doing you a favour, man. Is it a crime to have a crush? The transcending wake up with weird emotions. Some of them love me, some of them hate me. They think I'm their fathers or psychiatrists or children. You wouldn't know what it's like in there. Oh yeah, Tony sneered. I know you're a creepy stalker who can't get his own girl. Sure you want a cyborg? That's all you can get. Fine, but you can't have one that you've made over in a suit. I didn't do that, I said. You heard her. One of you psychotic, he said. Between the two of you, there's only enough sane for one person. Is that you or the Borg? He inched her out above the rollers. One of her eyes leaked around the gouge. Fine, I did it, I said. Give her back. Sorry, Bill, he said. This is for your own good. It'll fix you. He dumped Clementine overboard as I lunged. I grabbed at her shirt, but she fell right through. She tumbled onto the metal rollers, hands grasping for purchase, soft limbs flailing. The rollers dropped her off, down into the recycling vat with a crunch. I turned, swinging the shears at his head. They caught Tony's cheek as he danced backwards, opened up a shallow curve. Red dripped onto his shirt. All right, for real this time, is it? Tony raised the pipe wrench. This time I won't stop her watching you faceplant. This time there's no manager to protect you. I lunged again. He blocked my shears with his pipe wrench. The clang echoed up my arms. This is for Sue. This is for Sue, he said, and his wrench slammed into my side, knocking me to my knees. And this. And his wrench slammed against my hand, knocking the shears from my grip, shooting spasms up from my fingers. I thought if I could get to the controls, I could shut off the recycler before it discovered a defective head, but Tony lunged for me again, and I had to scramble. We circled around the floor, Clementine's voice calling up to me, crying. The machinery whirred in on her. One last lunge for the controls, but Tony cut me off. A snick from the vat, and then the crying stopped. And then there was silence. I grabbed the shears with my left hand and swung at Tony. He backed away, laughing, parrying with the wrench, but the blades opened and a wild arc sliced the skin of his knuckles, knocking the wrench from his grasp. He swore, back towards the vat, and there was nowhere to go. I swung, the shears open wide. Tony jumped out onto the metal rollers. For an instant he ran them, as fine and easy as any of our birling contests. For an instant he hung suspended over the recycler. For an instant he looked at me with triumph bright eyes. Then his foot slipped backwards on metal and he tumbled forward into the vat. He scrambled up. Bill! Bill, get me out! I watched the machines surround him. His hand was dripping where I had sliced his knuckles. You can have Sue, let me out! I didn't want Sue anymore. I wanted Clementine, whose headless body was lying in the sorting bin, whose head had been absorbed and reduced to elements. The machine sized up his hand as defective, and with a slice and pop took it off, cauterizing its end. Tony screamed. The machine closed around him, its metal reaching for his face with the slice sheared out. In that moment, I looked inside myself, and I saw that I held Tony's fate in my hands. That I loved that knowledge. That I could kill him. I stared into his eyes, and he knew I knew it. And only then did I get up, scramble to the machine, power it down with shaking hands. Only then. I still work on the eyeball floor. There was an inquiry, but Tony remained silent. The company paid for a new hand for him and safety measures for the recycler, but Tony took all the money instead, screwing a metal hook to his wrist so he could keep the grease vats filled. He built a house for Sue when she left feet and had babies and went grey in a year. Every time I see Tony's hook, I close my eyes. I still work on the eyeball floor, transcending the cyborgs, but I've lost my edge. I'm frightened like I never was before. Frightened of the cyborgs that stand behind me, hiding behind their printed eyes. You see, every crash model that comes through now, I wonder if its body once belonged to Clementine, but if she's come through, I can't see her. I'm blind to the cyborgs and the passions they imitate, to the way they steal from humanity with every blink. There are signs on the eyeball floor. I drink my tea with powdered milk and watch them from behind my eyes. Some days the signs keep me sane. Know thyself, they say, and I do. Oh, I do. Don't blink.
I need to look up when this story came out and when the first Weeping Angel story came out from Doctor Who.
And see what the crossover is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And see if there's... I'm so conflicted about this story because I like the chat. I was like, okay, Tony needs to die, but he's the one who gets to live and Clementine doesn't. And, Tina's so good at that whole... It's not quite surrealism. It's just on the edge of it, but it's just, it's such good stuff.
Within it's
Yeah, that's right. It was an Escape Pod episode.
Yeah. It's like Brazil. It's like the Terry Gilliam movie Brazil. It occupies this liminal space between about 6 or 7 different genres, and it does all of them horribly and horribly well.
Yeah. Just a warning, I think, ahead of the next story. Take that and build on it in terms of content warnings. So if you haven't, I will put the link in the chat one more time because the next story takes it a step further.
Cinematic perpendiculars. Orthogonal POV that vibes just not right. Yes, that's absolutely it.
Orthogonal POV. I love that. That's a great description.
I would put this in a straight line between... We're on the same straight line as Midnight Meat Train.
Now she's lost and gone forever. Dreadful sorry, Clementine.
Midnight Meat Train and all that kind of neo splatterpunk almost, but not quite. Kiwi, I understand completely. Please don't worry about it. Also, I believe it's your birthday. Is that right? If so, happy birthday. And have fun. And we'll see you next time.
That sounds good. Or if you want somebody to give you a ping that we'll be back for shenanigans later on, that's fine too. You let us know. And just a reminder, folks, we've been streaming almost an hour. So if you haven't refilled your drink or perhaps attended to medications or pets or other things of that nature, do take a moment to do that.
You want to press on?
I think we're good for the second story, and then after that, we'll take a break before the shenanigans.
Okay. Turning the apples?
Turning the apples. This story was on Pseudopod. I'm trying to remember when. It was Pseudopod 177.
I think it was. Eldritch, that sounds like an allergic reaction. Keep an eye on it, and if it's a problem, yeah, that's maybe a call 911. But I hope it's okay. Turning the Apples by Tina Connolly. Get yourselves, says Show to the streaming tourists. We've done the content warnings, right?
I put the content warnings in the chat, yeah. And I think maybe no accents on this one, yeah.
No accents?
Okay, but maybe a side character, not a main character.
Okay. Turning the Apples by Tina Connolly. Headline content warnings: death and dying, horror themes, mental health, miscellaneous sexual themes, violence, detailed content warnings: death and dying, death, coma, suicide, horror themes, body horror, infection, mental health, addiction, miscellaneous, swearing, drug use, sexual themes, sexual references, prostitution, violence, and injuries. Get your cells, says Show to the streaming tourists. New world, need a cell, come here. Not interested. Brought one on the ship. Show opens his jacket, reveals a wall of buttons, cornrowed phones. Come in handy if you get in trouble, mister. Some local shoves him. Fast packer his age in shiny shoes. Why don't you leave with the other tourists, foreigner? Show can't afford trouble, so he ducks his head, smiling. When the local goes by, nabs his cash flap. Swore to Mac that he wouldn't, maybe, but that was before 6 months of taunts, before it was driven home that honest hawking is a recipe for no food, no cash, no ticket, off. Hand on his sleeve and he whirls. Cell ain't a cell, sticking out a blade, ready to take the thug if he has to. But this isn't a regular thug, this is Double Job Johnny, and that's bad, because the only time Johnny comes to see him nowadays is for Hawk. What's up? Show says, all cool. His hand retracts to his pocket. A likely Mark walks by, but he can't go, not with Johnny draped and breathing hot in his collar. I've got apples in the stockyard, says Johnny. Fresh. Now, apples is code for coma bodies, that 0.1% of off-world tourists that get the infection. They disappear if Hawk is fast and the crematory is slow. Stockyard is the freight shipyard, that's easy, but he's blocked out what fresh is. I've got a good gig now, Show mumbles. Johnny flicks a cash flap out and hits Show's. Johnny always was better at lifting than Show, even back when they were scrawny, jerky kids. Back before Johnny turned tricks and Show was just learning to turn minds. $18 off for tourists, Johnny says. You know Hawk will give you $2,000 for an hour at the stockyard. Cells, says Show to a tourist. Get your cells. Johnny slams his hand into Show's shoulder, and there's no knife there, but the force of what Johnny holds on Show. This ain't a negotiation, boyo, says Johnny. They're fresh, and Hawk's in the lava. He needs what you do. You're the only survivor in the city right now. Stockyard, 3:30. Then Johnny is gone, and Show is sick to his knees because he's just remembered that fresh means awake and screaming. Fuck you, Ben, says Hawk. It's 3:31. After Show spent the last hour looking for them. In the moonlight, the shipyard is a mountainous dark, the whir of generators vibrating in his ears. It might cover the sound of fresh apples. He tries not to listen. Listen, boyo, turn them for us fast, just like the old days. Johnny says you need cash. The problem is Show's jonesing now. The touch of his mind into the coma bodies is something he has tried, like hell, to forget, but they press into his grey folds like a million firsts with a million new girls, touching his mind with vibrations hot and sweet and fleeting. He's been clean nearly half a year. So long. Too long. The coma bodies always come in waves. The wave of tourist season, the wave of Hawk finding new suppliers. There are 5 props sitting against a hanger wall, leaning on each other, and they are screaming. The worst kind. Hawk's got dirty rags in their mouths, but their cheeks are taut around it. At least someone's closed their eyes. Probably Johnny. Hopefully Johnny. What do you want them for? Never mind that. Show shoves hands in pockets. Hawk goes cagey when it's a new venture. Never mind that he knows the drill. Never mind that he knows he's got Show over a barrel. You know fuck all, Hawk. Are they for the waste, the minefield, what? I can't code them right if I don't know what you want them to do. Fine, Hawk says. I need swimmers. I need them to seek out pearls in the sulfur pits, where the heat blisters your arms and the gases belly out your lungs. Rose-coloured pearls, each coiled like the belly button of a giant. Johnny rolls his eyes at Hawk's purple words, and the boys grin. For a moment, it isn't tight pants Johnny and weary Show. For a moment, the two kids playing pickpocket for Hawk, and life is sometimes okay. I mean, they're alive, right? That's what Show always thinks when he first touches the coma bodies. At least I'm alive. He closes his eyes, savouring the last moment before he gives in. Johnny and Hawk walk away, fade away, and Show touches the first one on the head and reaches. Show doesn't think of much while turning. He can't, but in that first moment, he thinks of palm trees. Show barely remembers his home planet. He and his mom came here when he was 4. Despite what she claimed, it wasn't a vacation to the fabled water parks half a day south of here, the hot springs and waterfalls that kept tourists coming back. No, his mom was fleeing her old life. That's something he only pieced together a decade later. He and Johnny flopped on Hawk's couch, high on green smack. He doesn't know which planet it was, or what the whole of it was like. All he remembers is a swatch of green grass with a palm tree. Occasionally, other things float back. Words, faces, sayings. The image of the palm tree is what he calls home, though for all he knows, it wasn't even on his planet. Maybe it was something he saw on the ship. Maybe it was a cardboard palm tree, a carpet of plastic grass. Maybe he sat there and waited for his mom to come out of the ship's bar. He tries all these images on till the palm trees disintegrate in swimming and pearls and pure white nothing, and he still doesn't know. Last coma body turned, and now the 5 are all turned, ready to dive for pearls for Hawk. Show's full of buzzing aftermath, his mind panting like he's jizzed all over him. Hawk drops a wad of cash that thunks his shoulder. Sure, he grabs it, but it's nothing compared to the fierce relief that floods his brain. He limps down the long road from the shipyard, blood dripping from a bitten tongue. He thinks he'll avoid the street for a few days, lie low, score some green smack. Anything to take the edge off of wanting to do more apples. Maybe 2 thou is enough to get him on a ship himself, get him off-world. If it wasn't for Hawk, his past, Show could stay clean. It's cold out here in the early morning. The green smack is quick to come by, though. The pea stink outside his squats hardly bugs, not while he's all strung on coma bodies. If he had another 50 in the alley, he'd do 'em all, but instead, he rolls up the green smack under his tongue and he flops on the mattress. And the drug makes him sad, just like it always does. It isn't most punks' drugs of choice, but it shows. This time on the green smack, he remembers how he and his mom got infected. The first he knew something was wrong was his mother asleep, standing up, pouring whiskey over a mug and onto her hand. She woke up just once, and then fell into a coma. He remembers toddling around the hotel room before he fell asleep too. His dreams were beautiful. Dreams of something orgasmic that was a new sensation at 4. Gorgeousness lush and happy, and when he woke, he was sweaty and starving, and his mother was flopped on the hotel bed. Show can't forgive himself for toddling out to find food, for inadvertently reporting her, because white blurs of grown-ups in coats took her away. He traded her for a ham sandwich. That's how he feels. And here and now on the green smack he cries snot and spits more blood, and that's when the Polly comes to his crappy squats and hauls Show himself away, still crying like a 4-year-old. And you know what? They don't even give him a ham sandwich. At the brick station, Mac stretches and sighs. Give us the details, Show. You might as well. You already know what's up. Why do you want me? Show hunches around his knees. There's bits of glass in his pant leg from the shipyard tarmac. He flicks them onto Mac's desk. Mac ignores it. We know it's Hawk. We know this supplier. We know it's 5 or 6 bodies. We don't know where they're going. And Jesus, Show, we would like to track them down. Don't you think your mother would have liked that? Keep talking about her and I won't tell you anything. Truth is, he hates to disappoint Mac. Mac picked him up the first time he was caught. 8 years old, and he'd already turned 53 bodies for Hawk. 53 because he remembers each and every one. Mac cleaned him up, got him in a foster home, a decent one where they didn't hit you. But when Hawk came to him with more apples, Show went straight back. I know you've been clean half a year, Show, says Mac. I was rooting for you. What's Hawk gotten you that you can't resist? Just the money? Show lies. I need to eat, don't I? Join up with us. Max says, help us hunt down these assholes. Rescue other tourist kids who survived and got caught up in this. Don't you wish you'd never known what it was like to touch their minds? Of course he does. But so what? If I worked for you, they wouldn't tell me what they were up to. Duh, he says. Mac rises and cracks his back. Looks out the window at a grungy building a metre away. It's painted red brick like so much of this port city, like a fleeting bright colour will slick over decay. There's a rumour, Max says, that a kid like you, except better than you, a fighter, has managed to undo the damage. Show's heart pounds so hard he thinks he can't hear Mac. All. Wakes them up. Mac's voice does that measured thing. She says it hurts a bit, but the rush comes later, like a stalling for the pleasure. He twirls a pen. Too bad she's in East England. They ain't letting her pass their borders for cash nor love. And how to be the guy we know here trying it. His eyes catch Show's. To heal them. There'll be cash for each one you turn, from the general missing persons stockpile. Awake. Alive. Okay. Show can't breathe, can't think, because the hold that Hawk's got on him is his mom, coma cold and alone, and digging waste out in the desert. He hadn't known that Hawk had his mother for a long time. Hawk had been using another kid back in those days, a girl stranded here. Her parents had been cremated quick, Hawk hadn't got them. Girl lasted a few years, then she tried to wean herself from coma bodies with street drugs, and she lost. And that's when Johnny found Show, his hair and skin a dead alien giveaway. You see, getting infected makes your brain rewritable. Surviving makes you able to rewrite. Not everyone gets it. Most natives are immune. Many tourists are. 0.1% is a low enough number that tourists flock in by the thousands, through the major port city and down south through the waters. The adults that get it are in a coma within 24 hours, and it's only the kids who survive. Sometimes. By the time Show saw his mother, he'd turned 19 minds for Hawk. He remembers the first one particularly, like you remember a first girl. Or first trick. But he remembers all the others too. Don't know why you would, says Johnny. I don't remember all the men, but Show does, and he clings to each one. Proof that somehow he is not like Johnny, not like Hawk, not like himself. This is all temporary and therefore changeable, rewritable. Show doesn't know if he recognised his mother the moment he saw her. He wants to say yes, but the truth is there was this moment when he saw this smelly, skin-rashed woman and a moment when he saw his mother, and the two seemed to be laid on top of each other, vibrating. 5 whole days on the street corner, and Show's only made $12 and 2 fistfights before Johnny comes back. Apples at the cellar, says Johnny. In the cellar, says Show. Fancy words, Show, marks Johnny. A cellar is a basement, so if cellar's your code, you should say in, not at. He's too eager. Strange words, strange memories spill forth as he tries to hide his jittery hands. Cells, get your cells, he says, turning, aping his former self. Johnny slugs his ribs, bruising him by the phones in his jacket. We don't talk about codes, he says, and his breath is sweet with cherry mint. Midnight. He's gone, whistling through the crowd, and Show pats Mac's wire in his sleeve. Packets his ribs. When neither is broken, he says, get your cells, until Johnny is vanished. Cherry mint's nice. Floods your mind with sweet and your breath with sugar, but it ends touching the hot rush of coma bodies. It's the drug of choice for people like Johnny, who spent their nights getting it up. That's a fucked up job, Show thinks. Maybe his life sucks sometimes, but he isn't Johnny. Show's had sex exactly twice, and he really doesn't seem cut out for it. If he could meet that girl from East England, he'd ask her what she thinks, because for him, this thing that everyone wants really isn't so great. It's a millionth of what it is to be hot inside the coma bodies. It's pale. It's localized. It's hardly worth the anxiety. Maybe that girl wouldn't know what he means. Maybe the two of them can figure it out together. Could trick out their own substitution for the drug they can't resist. But for now, it's just one more thing that makes him feel alien and alone on this planet, as much as the grey tint of his skin, the silky texture of his hair. He wants a jolt no one else can do or understand, and he doesn't want a joy that fills everyone else. It touches on his own work, sure. There isn't a big trade in coma pussy, but there's some, like there is for anything. Sho saw one alone once, a young woman with hair like a cotton ball and lipstick smearing off. She was sat down at the corner by some local who teared off in a hurry. Probably tracked by the pimp. Probably had a detector set to send someone out for her. Too witless to run. Her brains were coded by Sho. Or someone like Sho. Sho crept along the alley. She was crooning, not rocking, not coiled, limp against the building, singing a song about a sparrow. He didn't recognize her face, but checking slipped his mind in, and then was sure he didn't know her, hadn't done her. He was doing her now, though, her brain hot against his, slipping through the vibrating folds. She rocked her head back, still singing, staring at the moons. Sho recoiled then. There was an instant of pause, and then he rewrote her to walk down to the shipyard and stand under a shuttle. Now, thinking back, he thinks, could I have saved her? Woken her up? No matter how much life sucks sometimes. Sho likes it better than the reverse. He'd have granted that to the woman too, only back then everyone knew coma bodies were dead and all but their meat. So, in the end, at midnight, Sho pats his wire and drops into the cellar. It really is underground. Hawk packs in and out every time he uses it, slipping in and out by dawn. The wire is for Hawk's sake. Hawk knows he's been with Mac a lot, and Sho has never been good at hiding jitters. It's why Johnny is a better pickpocket than he is. And a better trick. Hawk pulls the wire out of Sho's jacket with a snap, laughs at Sho's expression, and tosses it on the ground. I'd be mad, but you're too lame, he says, and grinds it flat. Come on, there's apples. Cod them for waste. Sho reaches in, and when he touches the first, there's all that mad rush of vibrating brain, all that buzzing that usually makes it so easy to code the apple to do what Hawk wants. But now, following Mac's instructions, he's going to take out the buzzing. It takes fumbling. It isn't natural. It's like swimming upstream until it clicks, and then every place he feels the buzz that lets him hook in, he reverses it until the apple drains. The infection he's cutting out, it seems to fill him. It's a horrid wrong, and he twitches with it, trying to dispel the notion. At last the hook is less and less, and Sho has next to nothing to hook into. Then nothing, and he's locked outside. The apple's eyelids flutter, and Sho quickly leans down and whispers, "Play dead." The man seems to obey, and Sho quick tries the same reversal on the second, the third, slogging through as his brain tells him it's stuffed with the coma body's infection. It does hurt. He does want release, but he keeps going. Holding back seems a deserved punishment. Sho almost feels holy, which is another word from the past, but before Sho can start the fourth, number two spasms. I remember, I know, he screams, and Hawk and Johnny come running. Johnny's belt's undone, Sho realizes later, but right now it's all a stupid fat number two, and number three's too twitchy to play dead next to that, so number two, he's up and running on shaky legs, yelling for the Polly and his wife, and Hawk shoots him. Number one stays stiff, but number three bolts, and is shot. The hell did you do to them? I don't know, whimpers Sho like he's four again and piss scared. Hawk's eyeing Sho, but what distracts him is Johnny says, I know he did it. He did it somehow. And how the hell would he do that, huh? Says Hawk, and he smacks Johnny upside the head. Just because you wish you could do his job instead of your little pervy one, it must be a mutation. You, and he points into Sho's face, figure out how to adapt to this or you are dead. He stalks off. Johnny, with a crumpled face, hurries after. Number one's eyes go to him. Sho doesn't know if it's like looking at someone he killed or birthed, But either way, he can't stand the intimate touch of the man's eyes. Back door's past the stairs, he says, and then hurries out before he can be any more responsible for anyone. At the Red Brick Station, the show says 2 were shot, but I saved 1. It worked, and Mac believes him and hands him cash. Just like that. Mac doesn't ask the awkward questions like, what were the man's eyes like, or how Show feels now, stuffed, taut, and bursting with a mind full of infection. So Show squirrels the cash away with the rest of Hawk's money. You ready to trade again? I've got a lead on 4 prostitutes we haven't rounded up yet. Any time, says Show, and the thought is fine. If this keeps working, maybe he doesn't have to flee the planet like he longs to. Maybe he could play both sides and come out smelling clean. And that thought's a relief here with his mind still thick with the swarming of the coma body's infection. There must be some way to let that go, but it hasn't drained yet. But he'll figure that out, he's sure, here with bright hope flickering. No time like the present, says Mac, and he shoves his chair back. Unless you know somewhere else we should go. Hope floods a crowded brain. Hawk's taking one to the desert, says Show. After Show found his mom, he started sneaking back to be with her. Not right after a coma body's rush, but 2-3 days later, when the rush had died off. Then he watched his mother trundle over buried nuclear waste and didn't know what to feel. He hated the idea, but he tried it anyway. If he can rewrite coma bodies, why not rewrite his mom? And so he laid his brain alongside hers, though the vibrations were awesome and disgusting. He overlaid her with ideas of mothers and sons and hugs and palm trees. And when he backed out, she bent down and gave his exhausted body a hug, then trundled back into the waste, scanning with her monitors and smiling on one side of her face. Most miserable thing ever. Sent him running straight for Johnny's couch and the green smack. But today he doesn't have to run. Show says desert, and Mac knows right where to go. Waste cleanup is one of the uses for coma bodies that the poly don't do anything about, because officially, well, it doesn't happen. A few minutes out here isn't going to hurt anyone, and Mac and Show thread through the few lone figures past the red-painted bunkhouse until Show says, that one. Your mom? Says Mac, and Show, stunned, nods. Mac knows them. Show had thought he might, but the Mac hasn't done anything with this knowledge opens up a black wedge between them. Show tumbles out of the car, backs away from Mac and towards his mom. Don't do it! Don't do it! It's been 13 years, mate. She's gone. How do you know? Says Show. Rumour. That girl like you in East England, she couldn't wake 'em up right beyond 3 years. Their minds were too dead. I don't believe you. Maybe this girl is a fantasy, he thinks. A made-up ideal for Mac to prod Show so one way or the other. Look, I've got the file with her notes. Let me grab it, says Mac, and Show watches his mother pace the site. She's in that same brown shift, and her hands and arms are cracked and red and white, and her bare legs are brown and green. It's like any other day out here, except this day, this one has a different ending. But there's a whistle behind him. Johnny's, from the bunkhouse. Show idles that way, on guard. What are you doing here? You're in trouble, boyo, says Johnny. I told Hawk he should punish you, but he says you're worth even more to him if you just come back, or something. He studies Show and sighs, all the air whooshing from his thin frame. Is it true you can wake him up now? Show nods. Johnny kind of pats his shoulder, doesn't slug him or arm burn him. Then Hawk's behind Johnny, and he says, get your Polly back here and I will kneecap him. He's got a rusting iron bar that he draws up. We'll take you back, don't worry. There are 2 coma bodies wandering around the bunkhouse, both in those brown shifts. One is so diseased-looking, Show assumes he's too far gone to wander around with a monitor, even for an apple. Hawk practices swings. Is he coming? You're small time, aren't you? Show says he hadn't realised it, growing up in it, but the constantly shifting locations, the raising young boys like Johnny. Hawk swings at him, but he jumps back. You don't own me, says Show. Not like Johnny. You never did. Hawk swings again, slashing wildly at Show, but Mac's there behind him. He tases Hawk, throws the handcuffs on him. Johnny backs away. I ain't done nothing. I ain't done nothing. Mac breathes. Honest, Show, I wouldn't try waking your mother. She's there behind them, trying to hug Johnny. You knew she was here. What can I do about it? But that floods Show's mind with the image of the young coma body whore with hair like a dandelion. He grabs his mother's blotchy wrist, holds it tighter, and leans in, and then he is gone in this strange new method of pulling things out and into himself. Pulling in the rotted bits, pulling in the mechanical bits, taking them into his own self. It hurts, yes, but when he's done, there's that holiness in it too, and he sags onto the ground, painful in every bone and absolutely on edge. And his mother doesn't move. I'm sorry, Show, said Mac, but then her eyes open. Her eyes are lopsided. She looks at him. Her rat's nest of hair falling over, and like a lightning burst, she croaks, Boy. Then she collapses, falling limb by limb to the whitened ground. Her eyes whiten, and her pitted hands search aimlessly for her monitor. Slowly they search, and slower. Her nose presses into dirt. Show can't look at Mac, knows the pity on Mac's face. I'm sure it'll get better, Mac says, and this is the first time Mac's lied directly to him. Mac knows it too, and he flinches, burly shoulders twitching. Loser, rasps Hawk. His shoulder twitches from the tase. Should have woken her up when you were 4. Of course, then you wouldn't have got to fuck them all, which I'd let you do. Wouldn't got to spend your life making cash for screwing them over. Show hurls himself at Hawk, knocking the monocled man backwards, and before Mac can pull him off, Show punches out at Hawk not with his fists, but with his infected mind. It sears out, taut and bursting. It's all been waiting to be released, and all 4 infections he's scored pour into Hawk and knock him cold. Cold but screaming. Hawk's fresh all right, unawake and crying on the ground. They are all stunned, all but Show's silent, still mother. Show's shocked and twitching, and he runs lopsided, stumbling with the spent energy, full of strange highs and horrible thoughts. He takes Hawk's car through the desert and back to the city. Mac doesn't come after him, nor Johnny. Not in the next 12 hours, which is what it takes to come down from the high and the shock and count his cash from coma bodies. He can get to palm trees, he thinks, if he knew where they were, and if he should go. Because there's East England too, and maybe it seems to him that a tourist is a guy who never interacts with his own life, never slips into the deep. Show runs hard to the port, where he breathes hard and fast. He watches the heat waves of the shuttles. Ships in flight.
I love how that story ends. It's both freeing and damning. This poor kid.
We mentioned Tina's really good, right?
Tina's very, very, very good. I really like that story. I think it was also, we should say that this is not her only milieu, that she then writes wonderful, fluffy, light stories.
Oh God, one of the best comedy writers I know.
Oh yeah, she's a fantastic comedic writer. But we know this crowd skews dark, and we thought these two might be in their wheelhouse.